This is an example diagram that I created without doing any manual work myself. This diagram was generated by AI. In particular, it was generated by Amazon QCLI. The other day, I was looking at this AWS blog that says build AWS architecture diagrams using Amazon QCLI and MCP. It looked interesting enough because I do have to create diagrams at work quite often, and the last one probably took me 2 or 3 days because I was using Draw.io or whatever internal version we had of that at Amazon. So when I saw this, I thought that's quite neat. And then I scrolled down to see the prerequisites and setting up my environment, and it basically told me that I need to install a bunch of things on my local system. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I don't really like doing that, especially things like installing Python on my local system, because that means that probably one of my previous Python installations is gonna break, and if I did develop something using my local system, then that project may not even work anymore. That's why, as always, we're gonna turn to Docker to see if I can Dockerize this and being able to run all of this, including the setup, just with 1 or 2 commands. So I spent some time figuring it out and I got it working. I will share the link to this project in the description of this video, but I will briefly show what it involves. First of all, there is a Docker file, and as always, you start with getting the updates for the operating system that you're using, which in our case is Ubuntu. Then we're installing Python, Python pip, whatever. Then we're installing GraphViz, which is what actually generates the image itself. Eventually, we install Amazon Q Developer CLI. We are also installing the MCP servers for AWS documentation, which includes diagrams and actual documentation about best practices and etc. And then we copy our MCP settings to our Docker container, and then we say entry point is Q, and then we will execute the chat command to start chatting with the AWS CLI. I've mentioned the MCPs. So what are they? Think of MCPs as basically extensions to your AI model. So whenever it doesn't know how to do something, it can see the list of available MCPs and see which basically API calls it can make to gain that extra information that it can use. In our case, we have this MCP servers defined. As I mentioned, we were already installing them, but we still need this JSON file to make sure that Amazon QCLI knows that it can actually call these. As you can see, auto-approve here is an empty array. I've tried configuring it here, but it doesn't quite work. I'll get to that in a second why it's important. So first you would need to call docker compose run --rmq login if it's your first login. And then after that, you will call the same command, but with chat instead of login. I'll just show you how it works. If I run this login command again, it's gonna tell me that, hey, you already logged in. So we can log out first. And then we run the login command again, and it asks us if we want to use it for free with the builder ID or with the pro license. You can use it for free with the builder ID. What it's gonna do is it's gonna give you this URL that you will need to copy and paste into your browser. So in this case, we're gonna insert it in here. Usually, if you are not logged in your browser, it will ask you to sign in with the builder ID. And if you don't have one, then you can sign up for it for absolutely free. So now it tells us, hey, confirm this code matches, but we've basically pasted the URL from here, but we can confirm that it's the same code as in the URL we've pasted. Then we click confirm and continue. We say, hey, we want to allow access, and that's it. So now in our terminal, it says logged in successfully. Now we can run the second command, which is same command, but with chat instead of login. It's gonna set things up and then say, hey, you're chatting with Claude for Sonnet now. And let me see, we don't really need anything else to see here. but I'm going to test if it can generate a diagram using one of the examples from the blog I mentioned. We copy this, we paste it in here, and it says thinking. It's gonna figure out what it needs to do. Now it's gonna say, I want to search documentation. Are you allowing this action? Remember when I mentioned that in our MCP JSON, auto approve is empty? I've tried adding things like search documentation and stuff, and it still kept prompting me for these things. And it may be quite annoying to do. So I'm actually gonna quit. And so in the README, I've described another command where we, after the chat, we add -- trust all tools. That way, whenever we copy this query again, it's just gonna run things and actually generate the diagram for us without us doing anything whatsoever. So literally you just run the Docker compose, run blah, 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 and then paste your prompt with the diagram you want to get created, and then that's all you need to do. Then it will automatically do it all for you without prompting you to approve anything. Now you may wonder, should we really trust all tools? And in theory, we shouldn't, but since we're on a Docker container, which is basically isolated from our operating system, it is okay if something breaks, if it like deletes, some system file on the container itself, because all we'll need to do is destroy that previous container and then create a new one and everything will just work again. But in theory, it shouldn't really happen. So now it tells us that it created the diagram, created it under this path. Let's see, EC2 S3 connectivity. The cool part is because we mount the working directory, we can actually see the generated diagrams in our local system files. So now I can open it. That's the one I showed previously. And as you can see, it generated the diagram. Obviously, it is just an example. It has no names for anything. And in the prompt, we just said, hey, generate an example of an application that does this, this, and this. Well, you can improve your prompt and you can say which names you want, which types of services you want, how you want them connected, etc. And the cool part is you can actually then iteratively have it update the diagram if you don't like the way it generated it in the first place. In this case, see how we have S3 bucket external. Let's say, can we name the S3 bucket as images archive or something like that? So now it's gonna say, I will update the diagram as you requested. And let's see how different it's gonna be. All right, so it saved it at the same path. Interesting. Sometimes it actually tells you, hey, the same name, and then adds updated to the end or something like that. As you can see, now it says images archive. So that's a game changer, because now instead of you spending, hours or even days creating a diagram, you can do it basically in minutes, as long as you know exactly how you want these things connected. As I mentioned, I will put the link to this GitHub repo with all of these files into the video description, and the only prerequisite you will have to do is install Docker on your computer if you don't already have it installed. I hope this was helpful, and if you have not watched my last video on how to save money on S3 storage by using S3 tiers, then go watch that video.